The sound of a slammed door echoed through the narrow street of Willowhaven just as Elena Ward stormed out of her apartment. Her phone buzzed in her pocket, another message from her mother. She didn't even need to look. She already knew what it said. "You're meeting him tonight, no excuses." Elena exhaled sharply, the kind of sigh that carried years of exhaustion. The morning had already gone sideways. The power went out, her tea spilled, and now this blind date her mother insisted on. She tugged her coat tighter and muttered, "If this one turns out like the last, I'm changing my number." The small-town air bit at her cheeks as she hurried toward the library where she worked. The smell of rain lingered in the air, thick with sea salt from the nearby harbor. She tried to focus on the rhythm of her steps, anything to avoid thinking about another awkward dinner with a stranger who would probably talk about himself for 2 hours straight. But fate, or maybe irony, had other plans. By noon, a soft drizzle had started. Elena was outside trying to cover the library's outdoor notice board with plastic when a man appeared beside her, holding an umbrella. "You're going to ruin that nice coat," he said gently. She turned. He was tall, maybe mid-30s, with kind eyes and a quiet smile that didn't seem forced. His clothes were simple: dark jeans, a faded jacket, and his hands looked like they belonged to someone who worked hard for a living. "Thanks," she said, hesitant. "I'm fine, really." "You don't look fine," he replied, still holding the umbrella over both of them. "Here, let me help." Before she could protest, he was already helping secure the plastic over the board. The rain intensified, soaking their shoes, but somehow the moment felt strangely peaceful. When they finished, she gave a small smile. "You didn't have to do that." "I know," he said, smiling back. "I wanted to." He nodded politely, then walked off toward the cafe across the street. She watched him go, wondering who he was and why she couldn't shake the warmth that lingered after he left. Later that evening, her mother called again. "He'll be waiting at the Lantern Cafe at 7. "Be nice, Elena." Elena rolled her eyes. "Mom, I don't need—" "Yes, you do. Just go, please." And because saying no would only mean another week of guilt trips and emotional blackmail, she went. The Lantern Cafe was cozy and dimly lit, filled with soft jazz and the smell of roasted coffee beans. She scanned the room and froze. The man from the library, the one with the umbrella, he stood up when he saw her. "You must be Elena. Wait, you're the blind date?" "I guess so." He chuckled awkwardly. "I'm Julian." Something about the coincidence made her laugh despite herself. "You've got to be kidding me." "Fate has a sense of humor," he said, pulling out her chair. They talked for hours about books, about music, about how she thought romantic comedies were unrealistic, and how he thought reality just needed better lighting. His voice was calm, unhurried. He never checked his phone once. When she asked what he did for a living, he paused for a fraction too long before saying, "I help with some community projects here and there." "Nothing fancy." She nodded, uninterested in job titles. What mattered was that he listened. Really listened, and when she spoke, he didn't just wait for his turn to reply. When they stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The streets glistened under the lamplight. "Thank you for tonight," she said softly. "I should be the one thanking you," Julian replied. "You made it feel easy." For the first time in a long while, Elena smiled without hesitation. Maybe it was. The days that followed blurred into something gentle. Julian started appearing more often. At the library, helping fix a broken shelf. At the weekend market, buying extra fruit and quietly leaving a bag at the community center. He never drew attention to it, never mentioned it. Just small, thoughtful gestures that spoke louder than words. Elena found herself waiting for him. His knock at the door, his quiet jokes, the way he looked at her like she wasn't something to be fixed, but something already whole. One afternoon, while she was shelving books, she caught him helping a little girl reach for a picture book. He knelt, smiled, and said, "You'll love this one. The hero isn't perfect, but he's brave in small ways." She didn't know why that moment hit her so hard, but it did. Weeks passed, and her mother was delighted. "See? I told you he was special," she said over the phone. "Yeah," Elena murmured. "He is." But there was something about Julian that didn't add up. He was too calm, too practiced at kindness. Sometimes she'd catch a flicker of sadness in his eyes when someone mentioned money or business. Once, She'd seen him in an expensive car outside town, sleek, tinted, the kind no handyman would drive. When she asked, he brushed it off as borrowing a friend's. Still, she didn't push. For the first time in years, she was happy. Really happy. And she wasn't ready to risk it. Then came the day that would change everything. It started like any other Saturday. Sunlight, coffee, laughter at the cafe. But as she reached for the newspaper on the counter, her eyes locked on a headline. Julian Cross pledges $10 million for global literacy program. Her heart dropped. The photo showed him in a suit, smiling beside world leaders and philanthropists. The same Julian who fixed her library shelves. The same Julian who said nothing fancy. She froze, the room spinning. The barista noticed. "You okay, Miss Ward?" She nodded slowly, though her voice cracked. Yeah. As she left the cafe, her chest burned with disbelief. Every step home felt heavier. The pieces started connecting. The car, the generosity, the mystery. He wasn't just kind, he was hiding. By evening, anger had replaced shock. She called him, no answer. She texted, "We need to talk now." Minutes later, a soft knock on her door. When she opened it, there he was. Calm, unarmed, almost relieved. "You saw it," he said quietly. "You think?" she snapped. "Who are you really, Julian? Or is that not your name either?" He looked down. "It's my name. Everything else, I should have told you." "You lied to me." "For weeks. I didn't lie. I just didn't tell you everything." "That's the same thing." Her voice broke, trembling with hurt. "Do you have any idea how that feels? I finally let someone in, and you were pretending the whole time." He stepped closer. "Elena, please. I never wanted you to find out this way. I just wanted to know what it felt like to be seen. Not as a headline or a bank account. Just as me." "Congratulations," she said bitterly. "You fooled me." She slammed the door before he could respond. Outside, the wind howled through the narrow street again, like it had that first morning. Only this time it wasn't just the weather that was cold. If you're still watching, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tell me in the comments, what would you do if you found out someone you loved was hiding something this big? That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She sat by her window, watching the rain streak down the glass, her phone buzzing every few minutes. Julian's name lit up the screen again and again. She couldn't bring herself to answer. Every message was the same. "Please." "Let me explain." "Explain what?" "That the man who fixed her shelves could buy the entire library 10 times over? That the one person she trusted most was a billionaire who'd been playing humble handyman to test her sincerity?" Around midnight, she tossed her phone onto the couch and whispered to herself, "You really are a fool, Elena." Across town, Julian stood in his empty penthouse overlooking the harbor. The city lights stretched endlessly, but he'd never felt more isolated. His assistant had called twice, reminding him about a charity gala tomorrow, but he didn't care. None of it mattered without her. He walked to the window, watching raindrops scatter against the glass. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of his own lies pressing down on him. Not the business deals, not the headlines, but the look on her face when she found out. The next morning, Elena dragged herself to the library. Her co-workers noticed her silence, but she brushed them off. "Didn't sleep well," she said. In truth, she couldn't focus. Every corner of the building reminded her of him. The shelf he repaired, the mug he always used, even the faint smell of cedar that seemed to linger where he once stood. By afternoon, she had made up her mind. Closure, that's all she wanted. She walked to the Lantern Cafe, the same place where they first met. He was there already, sitting at their usual table, looking nothing like the man she knew. His hair was neatly combed, his coat expensive, his posture guarded. He stood when he saw her. "Thank you for coming. Don't thank me. Just talk." Julian nodded slowly. "I should have told you the truth from the start. I've spent years surrounded by people who see what I have, not who I am. When I met you, I felt something different. You didn't care about any of that, and I didn't want to ruin it." Elena folded her arms. "So you thought pretending to be someone else was the way to build trust?" "I didn't think. I just wanted to feel normal, to fix things, to be useful, not admired." She scoffed. "You could have just said that." "I was afraid." Her eyes softened, but only for a second. "Afraid of what?" "That you'd walk away if you knew." that you'd think everything I did was just another performance." She stared at him for a long moment. "You were right about one thing," she said finally. "I am walking away." She turned and left. This time he didn't follow. Days passed, then weeks. Willowhaven felt smaller without him, like someone had taken all the color out of the town. The library went quiet. Her laughter, the kind that once came easily, vanished into habit. One afternoon, while sorting returned books, she found a familiar handwriting on an envelope. Her hands trembled. No address, no name, just for Elena. She hesitated before opening it. Inside was a single page. "Elena, I've rewritten this letter 100 times. There's no way to make it sound right, but I need you to know the truth. I didn't hide from you because I doubted you. I hid because I doubted myself. I didn't know how to show up in your world without changing it, without making everything about me. The night I fixed that fence at the library, I wasn't pretending. I was just happy. Probably the happiest I've been in years. You made me remember what quiet feels like, what peace feels like. If I lost your trust, I deserve that. But please know nothing I said, nothing I did was fake. I'll be at the Lantern on Sunday, just once more. Whether you come or not, I'll be grateful you ever did. Julian." Her breath caught halfway through reading. She sat there for minutes, maybe hours, the words looping in her mind. You made me remember what quiet feels like. She wanted to be angry, but she couldn't. Beneath the hurt, there was something else, something stubbornly tender. Sunday came faster than she expected. She told herself she wouldn't go, that she'd moved on. But as the church bells rang at noon, her feet carried her toward the cafe anyway. He was there, of course, alone at their table. Same seat, same cup of coffee, untouched. He looked up as she entered, and for the first time since she'd known him, he seemed nervous. "Elena," he said softly, standing up. "You came." "Don't make it sound like a fairy tale," she said, but her tone lacked its usual bite. He smiled faintly. "No fairy tales, just gratitude." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The hum of the cafe filled the silence. Clinking cups, distant laughter, the low hiss of the espresso machine. Finally, she said, "You broke my trust, Julian." "I know, but..." she sighed. "You also fixed more than one broken thing in my life." "That's hard to forget." He met her eyes. "I don't want forgiveness. I just want the chance to be honest this time." She hesitated, searching his face. The same eyes that once hid behind quiet smiles now held nothing but sincerity. "Then be honest," she said. "Why me?" He exhaled, almost in relief. "Because you never asked for anything. You never wanted to be impressed. You just saw me." The words hit harder than she expected. Her voice lowered. "Do you still want to be just Julian? No headlines, no foundation, no press?" He nodded. More than anything, a small, weary smile crossed her lips. "Then start there." He blinked. "What do you mean?" She pulled out the letter from her coat pocket and placed it on the table. "Start here as the man who wrote this? Not the billionaire, not the fixer, just you." His throat tightened, and for a moment, neither of them moved. Then she said softly, "I'm not promising anything, but maybe we can start over." He smiled, the kind of smile that came from relief, not victory. "That's all I've ever wanted." Outside, the rain had stopped again. Light streamed through the window, catching the glimmer of her eyes as she finally sat down across from him. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was gentle, familiar, like coming home after being lost. If you're still watching this far, you're clearly someone who loves good stories. Go ahead and hit that like button. It helps a lot. And tell me in the comments what you think Elena should do next. The following weeks unfolded with a kind of quiet uncertainty that neither of them dared to name. Julian didn't try to rush things. He didn't send expensive gifts or make grand gestures. Instead, he showed up in small ways, the kind that didn't demand attention. He'd leave fresh coffee on the library steps before opening hours. He'd help the neighborhood kids fix their bikes. Once he even volunteered to read aloud during story hour, his voice warm and patient as the children leaned in close. Elena pretended not to notice at first. But she did, every little thing. Sometimes she'd catch him outside the library, just standing there, waiting to ask if she needed help carrying boxes. Sometimes he'd simply wave from across the street and keep walking, like he was learning to love her from a respectful distance. Slowly, she let him back in. It started with coffee on Tuesday mornings, then walks by the harbor on weekends. The kind where words weren't necessary, just the sound of their footsteps and the gulls overhead. One evening, as the sun melted into the sea, Julian broke the silence. You ever think about what makes people stay? Elena glanced at him. What do you mean? I've spent years surrounded by people who wanted something. Status, money, proximity. But staying? That's rare. You stayed even after you found out the worst thing about me. She smiled faintly. I didn't really stay. I just came back. He nodded, a small laugh escaping his lips. Same thing, isn't it? She shook her head, but her heart warmed at the sound of his laugh. Genuine, unguarded. It was the sound of a man no longer performing. They reached the edge of the pier, where the water shimmered gold beneath the dying sun. Julian turned to her. Can I tell you something? As long as it's not another secret. He smiled. No secrets. I promise. It's just... For years, I thought peace was something you bought. A house on a hill. An island getaway, but it's not. It's this. It's you here, quiet beside me. Elena looked away, blinking hard. You're going to make me cry. He grinned softly. Then I'll stop talking. She laughed through a tear. No, don't. Just don't ever lie again. Never, he said. And this time she believed him. Months slipped by. The seasons changed. The town grew used to seeing them together. The quiet woman from the library and the mysterious man who kept rebuilding things no one asked him to fix. When the library roof started leaking, he didn't just hire a crew, he climbed up himself. When the local school ran out of supplies, boxes arrived anonymously, stamped with no logo, no signature, just a single handwritten note. For the kids. Elena knew who sent them, of course, but she didn't say a word. She just smiled when she saw him pretending not to notice. One afternoon, her mother dropped by, practically glowing. You look happy, she said, narrowing her eyes with suspicion. Who is he really? Elena laughed. Just Julian. Her mother raised a brow. Just Julian? Yeah, she said softly. That's all he wants to be. Her mother smiled knowingly. That's how you know it's real. The following spring, Willow Haven hosted its first community book fair. Children ran between stalls. Local artists sold crafts, and Julian, true to form, spent the entire day hauling tables, hanging banners, and quietly paying for everyone's lunch without a word. Elena caught him standing off to the side, watching the crowd. She walked over and said, You know, you could actually enjoy something instead of managing it. He smirked. I am enjoying it. By lifting boxes? He looked at her, half smiling. By watching you smile. She rolled her eyes, but her cheeks flushed. You're getting better at this. At what? Being normal. He chuckled. I've had a good teacher. That night, after the fair ended, they walked home together, hand in hand. The town lights flickered on, painting golden reflections across the quiet streets. When they reached her porch, Julian paused. Elena? Yeah? You remember what you said the night you found out the truth? About how you felt fooled? She nodded cautiously. I think I finally understand what you meant. Not about me lying, but about trust. It's not something you earn once and keep forever. You build it every day, brick by brick. I want to keep building it. With you. For a moment, neither spoke. Then she reached up and brushed a raindrop from his cheek. Then stopped talking and start building. He smiled, leaned in, and kissed her. Slow, gentle, like a promise rather than a performance. A year later, Willow Haven hadn't changed much. But for them, everything had. The library had a new roof and a bright little reading garden out front. Julian spent mornings there, helping kids plant flowers between story sessions. Elena had started a town reading club that drew people from neighboring towns. Their home, small, sunlit, full of mismatched books and laughter, sat at the edge of the harbor. No bodyguards, no luxury cars, just quiet mornings and shared coffee mugs. Sometimes, when the world felt too loud, they'd sit on the porch with a blanket wrapped around their shoulders, watching the first light of dawn spill over the water. One morning, Elena said softly, Do you miss it? Miss what? The other life. The suits. The meetings. The headlines? Julian thought for a moment, then smiled. Not even a little. You can't miss noise once you've heard peace. She leaned her head on his shoulder. You really have changed. He kissed her forehead. No, he said quietly. You just helped me remember who I was before the noise, she smiled. You're getting poetic now. Don't tell anyone, he said with a grin. The camera would fade out here, 2 silhouettes against the morning light, the waves whispering beneath them, the sound of a kettle whistling from inside. And as the screen softens, her voice, or maybe the narrator's, would linger for a moment longer. Love doesn't always arrive with fireworks or grand gestures. Sometimes it comes quietly, through repaired fences, borrowed umbrellas, and second chances. The quiet kind of love doesn't shout, it stays. If this story touched you, don't forget to hit the like button. It helps more people find these stories. Subscribe for more heartfelt tales every week and tell me in the comments, do you believe in the quiet kind of love?